Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone everywhere in between. I am a Spectrum D, but you may also call me Lewis, and I am joined by a fellow forger, SixMysta, or actually, no, that's the wrong name. I'm already screwing this up. Fiction Weaver 6. For our next Doctor Who episode review, for season 2, titled Lux. Six, if you'd like to introduce yourself and or segue into the first point.
Hello everybody, my name is Jonathan, but most of you know me as Six by now. And for this first episode, we open up into the Palazzo Picture House or Cinema in Miami, Florida, 1952.
Yes, this was hinted at, to some extent, in the last episode, The Robot Revolution.
Which, if you're interested in seeing our thoughts on the Robot Revolution, there will be a card at the end of the video that goes back to that. Or if you want, you can go to the playlist that you'll also see connected to this video if you want to see our entire Season 2 review on Doctor Who thus far. But,
excuse me.
As this is a follow-up to the Robot Revolution, obviously there is a lot to see. Obviously we get to see the follow-up of what happened in that episode between the Doctor and Belinda, but before we get to that, we see the startup of this episode. In the Palazzo Picture House, we see focus put on the moon's rays as it bounces off of different things such as someone's forehead, not actually, but a spoon, a random metallic surface on the wall, as it eventually interferes with the projector's line of light onto the screen. We see the cartoon character that was recently switched to, Mr. Ring-a-Ding, literally come to life, which follows a conversation with another character before he redirects his attention to the audience.
Even referring to one particular individual after he questions the, questions the film, like how it's done. Refers to him by description. Of course, no one gives him any answers because they don't know what to think of, the cartoon breaking the fourth wall.
Now, if that was me and I was watching a TV show and it felt like they were speaking to me, I would say something just to gauge if they actually are, because that would be kind of creepy.
Indeed. Following this interaction, he decides to leave the confines of the screen in which he is housed, and he is sizable, to say the least. Very large.
As he does so, we assume that he attacks the audience, but that's not too clear until later in the episode, which leads us to 3 months later, where we meet back up with the Doctor and Belinda, who have arrived, and we do see a small interaction between the two as they do, with the Doctor saying that that's 1952 out there, Belinda having the usual no, wait, we're not dressed for the occasion, and the Doctor showing her quote-unquote the best part, which is the dressing room.
Yep, through one door and out another. Before that though, the Doctor is preparing a device that he calls a vortex indicator in the hopes of assisting Belinda in getting back to her time, which they haven't been able to yet, as mentioned in the previous review and previous episode. Do excuse me. The pair leave the TARDIS, of course, taking their surroundings, and one of the things they notice as the indicator is getting its readings is a series of what look like messages, even memorials for some, outside the door to the palazzo.
And despite Belinda's initial desire to leave after seeing the indicator complete its task, the Doctor, who is indecisive as per usual to a mystery thrown in his face, or a damsel in distress trying to get home, the two decide on the mystery that has been ever so politely set up at a table at a diner.
They take the chance, what was it, 4 in the morning?
Indeed.
so hardly anyone was looking. They're served by a rather pleasant young man called Logan, who, informs the pair about the goings-on at the Palazzo, excuse me. I'm looking at our notes, and it's not on my screen at the moment. But they mention the story of a particular young boy who was in the cinema at the time, even getting the attention of the boy's mother, Mrs. Lowenstein, on the other side of the diner.
Here we do see the young boy's mother ask if he could, or if she could break the rules, which actually segues into a topic I would like to bring up today, is the topic of race in the past. A lot of people were curious exactly how they were going to handle that this season coming around, since the way they handled it in 13's run was a little different from how they should have. Let's just say that is a large reason why 13's run was hated as much as it was Doctor Who not covering topics in a way that Doctor Who should. And here, I think they did that beautifully. They mentioned the fact that there is a racial segregation going on, and that they might be treated differently depending on their own racial ethnicities. But at the end of the day, the larger story going on here, which is a giant fucking cartoon man come to life murdering people, is a little scarier than worrying about your skin color, which is exactly what we usually expect when we see Doctor Who. The plot is more important than the individual characters 90% of the time.
Indeed. The two move over to Mrs. Lowenstein's table, and excuse me. Yep, and we're back. Okay, where were we? The Doctor and Belinda find their way to Mrs. Lowenstein's table, where they further discuss the situation, and naturally, Mrs. Lowenstein has been by the theatre every day, hoping that her child comes out. I think he was
Tommy
16,
Lee.
Wasn't he?
Yeah. His name was Tommy Lee.
Thank you, it was Tommy Lee. That's one thing I didn't label. Following this, though, the Doctor and Belinda do... Well, let's put it simply, they break their way in. There's no other way of putting it. Sonic the lock. Yep. Blowing up the lock, in fact, that's keeping the chains on the door. And they look for Reginald Pye, the projectionist of the theatre, in the hopes of finding some answers. Of course, he's trying to deter them for their own safety. He has an idea what's going on.
A few seconds later, we see Mr. Ringading pop up on stage. The Doctor and Belinda go to investigate, and Belinda proves why she is not made to be a companion of the Doctor almost immediately. The Doctor gets some actual questioning in, some things for some decent information. And what does Belinda do? She immediately starts to taunt him. Why do you look like a pig? Why is your nose like that? Why is your skin blue? Really just saying everything possible to aggravate Mr. Ringading. And this is where we go into a little analysis from the Doctor, and why should we not make you laugh? And when we hear the laugh, it's a little callback to the Celestial Toymaker, showing us that Mr. Ringading is actually being possessed by the god of light, Lux, who is a part of the Pantheon of Chaos.
What a form to take. If it had been... It could have been anything else, and Lux had to strike at the time where a cartoon was playing.
Imagine it struck while the bomb tape from earlier was on.
He takes the form of he takes the form of a soldier or something.
Or a nuke made of light and just blows the city to smithereens.
Well, considering some of the demonstrations he performs as Mr. Ringading, the idea of him blowing himself up is not too far-fetched.
True.
Thankfully, though, as Lux catches on to the Doctor's intelligence,
And the fact that
they
he
are
is
saved
the
by a
Doctor.
distraction. And his identity. The two are actually saved from any immediate peril by the intervention of Reginald Pye, who puts the original film on as a distraction because Lux is compelled to take part in Mr. Ring-a-Ding's song whenever it plays. Curiously enough.
Might be just the law of the tune force, if you will.
I suppose so, because I know that the Pantheon all abide by certain rules. I hadn't counted for
Outside
I haven't
sources
accounted
or
for...
rules.
Yeah, I suppose I hadn't really accounted for that. The Doctor and Belinda do head to the projectionist room, meet up with Reginald, and he gives a bit of exposition on his connection to Lux and what Lux has done for him as one of the reasons he's stuck around.
Apparently, it seems that he is about to give us a full-blown sad backstory, which he does, and we find out that Lux had been nightly reanimating his wife to dance with him, which, yes, is kind of creepy, but kind of sweet at the same time, since that does come back later to save everybody. It is a very odd situation to put us in, and personally, I found myself pretty uncomfortable whilst he was explaining that.
I believe... Well, he doesn't necessarily say it. What he says does heavily imply it. She was taken out by... I think she was involved in a car collision, or a car collided with her as she was crossing the street, I think.
Yes.
Following on from this, Lux manages to find his way into the room. I think he actually flattened himself and went under the door cap. Because the song had ended during the exposition. And he gets the idea of trapping the Doctor and Belinda in film in the same way, that he did to everyone else. As we discover, everyone else is trapped on film reels.
But the difference is the Doctor and Belinda start off as 2D characters.
Yes,
now,
I haven't really thought about that.
Here is a large portion of unused potential. This episode spends so much time on literal dialogue that could have been skipped over, or introducing things they didn't need to skip over. So situations like this, where it's like, oh, the Doctor finds himself inside of a film reel, he's 2D animated. Instead of it being like a mini arc of the episode, what instead happens, they discover that emotional depth gives them literal depth, and they can become more 3D. So we get a little bit of trauma dumping from the two again.
I suppose I can somewhat see the train of thought. I suppose by adding depth to a character you could.
But that implies that a 2D character can't be compelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
I get it that it's this like 1950s cartoon logic, but like it is a very dated mindset to have. And yes, I guess in it being a dated mindset is exactly what helps with this like time travel thing. It just feels like they could have spent like at least 10 minutes within this like 2D animated space before realizing they could just move on to the next clip, which that's where we get into, oh, they're 3D again. Instead, they skip over this really cool concept they could have spent more time on by cutting away some time at different parts of things they didn't need to go over. Now, here's where I know a lot of people are going to be really iffy about the episode. Spectrum, would you like to talk about the crisis of Doctor Who metafilm clips?
Oh, okay. Are we going over the faux Lowenstein and Officer interaction?
Well, we could just as well skip over that, because like, okay, just to run back why Spectrum's confused right now, there's this moment they think they get themselves out of the film, and practically Mrs. Lowenstein and an officer come in, and the Doctor realizes that this is just a part of the film. They didn't actually get themselves out, because why? That's not a Florida police outfit. That's a New York police outfit, which was really stupid. And then they just continue the film reel and then think they break out again. And here's where the big meta issue happens.
Yes, so this is a segment that I'm not going to say I dislike, because quite frankly I haven't personally witnessed a lot of these moments in media, but it makes me feel weird, and I'm not sure why. But following the breaking of another fourth wall, the Doctor and Belinda exit the white space and find themselves in what looks like a 21st century living space, probably in a flat. And the faces that they next meet are a set of what appear to be real-life fans, cosplay features and all. These individuals, they never mention their names, at least until later, are Lizzie, Hassan, and Robin. After a little while, they talk, they get to go over a cup of tea because, well, British, I suppose. And after a conversation, it's revealed that the Doctor hasn't actually exited the confines of the show, but the free fans are yet another illusion like Lowenstein and Fake Officer.
Which is the part that makes this scene compelling. Now, the reason a lot of people might dislike this scene, obviously, is because of meta-awareness. The Doctor fully breaking out of the fourth wall, but that's not actually what happened here. This was Lux literally trying to mess with their heads, try and get rid of their sense of self before, doing what he's here to do. And these fans, quote unquote, constructed by Lux inside of this fictional world, they see the Doctor as we see him, this TV show that's always been there, that helped us grow as people, helped us develop as characters in real life. And they were able to gain a sort of intelligence about the show, because in their minds, they have these memories of watching everything. Best episode, Blink, quote unquote. Can't really disagree with that, but not my personal favorite. But they were able to figure out that none of this was real. They were the type of characters with no last name, quote unquote. And that allowed them to see a level of depth to where they could outsmart Lux and help the Doctor and Belinda move on to the next panel within the film reel.
Yes, indeed. Before they depart, though, they do get the message that when they leave into the white space, Lizzie, Hassan, and Robin actually cease to be. Yeah, they cease to be. So, after that, I suppose it would be emotional for them, emotional exit, they're back in the white space, and the Doctor comes up with the idea of tampering with the frame that they're in an effort to burn themselves out. Yeah.
Literally preventing the reel from continuing, which allowed the projector to burn the film reel.
There are two potential outcomes to this. They burn to death, or they escape.
Now,
and the latter, naturally, is what occurs.
Here's where something interesting happens, because this is a little tidbit that got skipped over way too fast. So we see the Doctor and Belinda come out of the film reel, now in the actual real world of Doctor Who. Back in the theater, they talk like, are they out? And the Doctor says, yes, I got burned. He shows his hand, and here he uses regeneration energy that he had over from Bi-Generation to heal his hand. A quick little comments made from Belinda before Lux strolls in. Now, it's unclear if Time Lord Light was made aware to Lux in this moment, since from this point forward he tries to use the Doctor as a light battery, which Spectrum will explain in a second. But practically they just kind of skip over, did Lux already know about it and was just messing with them, trying to demotivate them, or was this scene what taught him that? And is there just another scene of the Doctor's hubris backfiring on him? There's a lot of questions to be had that just aren't very clear here.
So, transpiring events. Small talk, and then Lux uses film reel to bind the Doctor to the back wall, which I suppose is strong enough to hold him.
And
then,
film
yeah,
reel? Isn't he supposed to control light? So many questions. So
now that I think about it, should he have been able to control the cameras that first put them on the film?
no idea. No idea.
I hadn't thought about that until, well, I had thought about it, but I didn't bring it up because I didn't think it was important. But yeah, the Doctor is bound to the wall by film tape, and Lux is extracting regenerative light from him. And as this transpires, the Doctor not only, urges Belinda to get out of there, but also gives her a clue as to how to get by Lux or deal with him.
Because he's a time lord and he always knows what time it is.
But as this is happening, Lux is changing. He still keeps the Mr. Ring-a-Ding persona, but he gradually leans into the third dimension, first seeing the base model, then flat colors, then realism.
Very disturbing, to say the very least. Visually, it disturbed me to my core, but I love that scene so much.
And this is why we don't apply realism to certain art styles.
True.
Belinda realizes what time it is. It's daytime. And the importance of flammable film tape comes in here. They've got to blow the building. Well, actually, they don't blow the building up, but they
blow a portion of the building up so that sunshine could break through from where the Doctor was onto Lux. Now, this was teased throughout the episode. What's the one thing he never does? It's go outside. And the moment he's exposed to the sun, instead of him being undone or there being so much light that he disperses or something, he actually starts to absorb the light from the sun, until he gains so much power that he is functionally becoming a full god. He is absorbing not only the light from our sun, but eventually the light from every sun in the known universe. So, in conclusion, he's the god of chaos that won? Question mark?
He won, but he didn't really, as far as we know, he hasn't gotten anything out of it.
Well, the goal isn't to kill the Doctor. Each god from the Pantheon has their own goal, and Lux's was to gain power through consuming light. And he kind of did.
He did.
Now, he didn't get a physical body like he wished for from the Time Lord light, but he did kind of accomplish his goal in absorbing all of the light, and I guess he is all light now, or maybe not. I guess it's left up to assumption.
We've got nothing. One additional note as well. Belinda was originally supposed to be the one that blew up the projection room, but it was actually Reginald who does it after a short visitation from his
deceased wife.
From his deceased wife, thank you. He lights a match and takes the room with him, and that is what leads the light to shine in and overexpose Lux.
Another dramatic scene that could have been done without, to give more time to that little 2D segment, which would have been the best part of the episode, if they did it.
As a result of Lux's defeat, though, all the people he imprisoned on the other film, which... Is there a chance that could have been destroyed as well in the explosion?
Oh, very well. There was a chance that they could have been off, but luckily, they were not.
Yeah. There's a commotion at the front door to the theatre. The Doctor forcefully unlocks it, and everyone is released and back to their friends and/or family. Another person in the crowd, as we should come to expect at this point, is Mrs. Flood.
Which, surprised no one at all, but is actually pretty nice to see, making her relevant in these episodes in a way that's displaced in time instead of just having her primarily show up in the 21st century. Really adds a level of mystery to this character and is just making us wonder so much more about her.
Indeed. She notes the dematerialization of the TARDIS when the Doctor and Belinda leave, even pointing it out to a couple of people in the crowd as a show, and also makes note of May the 24th. So she is clearly aware of what goes on, or she's at least somewhat aware. She has knowledge about that date.
And
that, of course, the Doctor and
once
Belinda don't know yet.
again, we go back to that question: is she aware of the fourth wall? Is she breaking the fourth wall, interacting with us, or is she doing something similar to what the gods from the Pantheon of Chaos do, where they're not breaking the fourth wall to us, the audience, but to all these like extraterrestrial entities that exist beyond the universe? Like there's a lot of questions on that character, and as the season goes on, we might actually make a video fully going into that character when more is revealed. But for right now, thoughts on the episode. Spectrum, how do you feel?
Well, I did point out in the last discussion that I thought I was going to like the idea of a 2D animated character in the form of Mr. Ringading. And I did. I very much like the idea, and I still believe, especially with what we've seen in the episode now that it's out, it's definitely a concept that Classic Who could have explored if they had the resources and the budget. But additionally, while I'm not against the idea of Lux taking on Ringading's form, I do think that it would have been interesting to see an alternative story where Mr. Ringading was brought to life, but he was still his own entity, exploring the idea of an actual cartoon character plucked from their world, rather than it being a facade for a higher being.
Now, here I actually agree, and I actually wish they handled Lux more like they handled Sutek in the previous season, where there were like episodes of lead up. Even if it was only one episode, and like an episode that follows Ringading, maybe we see some mischief in the real world because of his presence, some mischief in his animated world with the Doctor being stuck there. I would have really liked to see that perspective of Mr. Ringading being a byproduct of Lux entering the physical world, and a follow-up episode going over Lux himself. I think there was just so much potential here that went under the bridge. Now, obviously, we knew some of this going into the episode wasn't going to happen because, especially after episodes like The Devil's Cord, it feels like they really don't actually care about the Pantheon. They're just trying to shove some of these members in here to lead up to something bigger as the season finale. And I will say this, I said this last episode, this episode had the means to be my favorite episode of the run thus far. But I have to say, out of 15 episodes, yes, this is one of my more preferred episodes. I really actually liked the episode, but I still think it is worse than episodes like The Devil's Cord or The Empire of Death. I think, yes, it was great. It had great execution. It just could have been so much more.
Indeed. Something else as well. They do a fake out for the credits, which shows that that Lizzie, Hassan, and Robin are somehow
still alive.
Still alive?
Which might mean that Lux has not been defeated, and all that meant was the defeat of Ringading. Or this could mean so much more in the fact that, hey, maybe Lux did gain all that power, and now his fictional worlds are not so fictional anymore. A lot of implication.
Following on from that, of course, we also get a snippet of the following story, which at the time of recording is tomorrow. The Well.
But when you're seeing this, that's going to be right now. So after you see this or you've already watched that episode, leave a comment about what you think about that episode, and we might actually put a few of those comments in the next video.
Let's see. So, any passing thoughts before we depart?
Not really. Everything to do with that like little scene on the next episode has just led confusion in my mind. Is this a future Earth? Is this an alien planet? If so, why? Like, my brain is not going into this very well, and I have zero expectation for it.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought that much about it somehow, but when we were watching the episode back together before recording, I had the realization that if the future is molded, like determined by what happens in the present, then how is there any knowledge of, for want of a better word, a prime future? Like, the Time Lords, of course, have knowledge of past, present, and future.
Okay, I'm gonna say it like this. The Time Reapers were created for that exact reason, to keep the proper timeline in check, and it hasn't been used since. So, any thoughts on what is the consistent future of Doctor Who should have its own video? And I think dumping that here would just be rambling.
I don't know if I've got the fuel. I don't know if I've got the knowledge or the fuel to ramble about that, so I'd probably leave that up to you.
We might be able to rant about that next episode, depending on how that goes.
Indeed, we shall see. Anyway, closing statement. Six, would you like to go ahead?
This episode was actually pretty decent. I didn't think of it in any bad way, so all I gotta say is prepare yourselves for the next episode, because me and Spectrum will be going over every episode within this Doctor Who season, and if there's any other shows or possibly even anime you would like us to cover in a similar weekly fashion, maybe let us know in the comments down below.
Indeed. If you enjoyed what you have seen, or actually much preferred heard, this is much better as a background noise, do feel free to check out our prior videos, our expanding library. Leave a like, comment perhaps, even subscribe and enable notifications if you'd like to see when we upload next. Additionally, join the Discord server for the Forge as well. We're pretty active on Discord, so if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss with us, do feel free to head over there. We will respond ASAP.
So, without further ado, this has been Six.
And this has been Spectrum.
See you next time, nerds.
Very well, Forgers.